It's worse than expected. US PPI numbers came out worse than expected, The United States Producer Price Index numbers were released this morning and they grew by 0.2%, which is less than the 0.4% that was forecasted, bringing the production up 8% as a whole from a year ago. Remember, tomorrow is a big news day as both the UK and Canada will be releasing CPI numbers, so stay tuned for that and make sure to check out TraderNick's live stream at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time, where he'll talk about some currency pairs related to the news event. Now let's go ahead and dive into some EdgeFinder analysis. Alright, so here we are in the EdgeFinder, starting like we always do in the score chart summary, taking a look at all of our currency pairs, as well as the other things that we have listed in here. But in fact, I just want to look at currency pairs for the moment. And not much has changed from yesterday. USD CAD is the pair that we took a look at yesterday. That is still our top buy at the moment with a score of +5. Not a whole lot of buys in the EdgeFinder at the moment. Not a whole lot of sells either, but the sells that we do have are strong sells, all NZD pairs. So the pound would be one that I'd be interested in taking a look at because we do have pound CPI coming out tomorrow, and considering this pair is a strong sell, might be worth taking a look at.
So this is how I like to use the EdgeFinder in my strategy. Starting with the smart money tracker, we can see here that institutions are about 75% long on the USD. And looking at the score chart summary, we can see that USD CHF is getting a buy rating of +5. So with all of those factors fundamentally pointing towards a long bias on USD CHF, I know I'm going to be looking for buys. I can then go to the 4-hour chart and see that USD CHF has been continuously trending higher, making higher highs and higher lows. I also identify my key levels of support and resistance. So then once we get a correction into one of my support zones in confluence with a 618 Fibonacci retracement, I can take high probability longs with lots of confluences behind my trade idea. If you want the EdgeFinder for yourself, take advantage of the massive 40% off Black Friday sale by using my code Jake at checkout.
So here we are, GBP NZD, strong sell bias of course, score of -8, and our COT data has a score of -1. And we can take a look at those numbers right over here. So under our sentiment section, COT data or institutional trader data shows that we have a New Zealand dollar has scores of 45.83% long and 54.17% short, while the pound sits at 30.47% long and 69.53% short. So both pairs, or both currencies, being favored on the short side, although the pound is a heavy favorite on the short side, whereas the New Zealand dollar is just slightly favored. Close to 50-50, but slightly favored on the short side. Pound, on the other hand, nearly 70% short. That is leaning towards a heavy favorite on the short side. Retail sentiment, on the other hand, is practically 50-50 at 52% long and 48% short. So that's giving us a neutral score because that's not really leaning one way or the other. Although retail traders just slightly edge it out on the long side. Seasonality report, we have a score of -1 here. And as we can see, all-time average, last 5-year average, ever since September really, there's been a downward trend, both all-time and last 5-year, moving through the last months of the year. We can see a little bit of that consistency here in October to November, and our current year average, we definitely have a strong downward move there. And as it stands right now, this market is continuing to trend downward, so we're expecting to see it move even lower going into December. So that all lines up with our all-time and last 5-year average there. Trend reading is a score of -2, and keep in mind that we score trend reading on a score of 1 or 2. So if this were to have a score of -1, that would mean that yes, this market is trending downward, but not as strongly as a -2 score. A -2 score means that this market is absolutely in a downward trend. And in fact, we can see that here in the price chart. October 27th is the last day that we have the data listed in the breakdown page for the price chart, going back a couple weeks. And we can see that it's basically been nothing but downward moves since then. Little tiny spikes upward, but consistently moving downwards. Taking a look at the price forecast is what these 3 lines here. If this price were to, moving into tomorrow, if this price were to shoot up a little bit, this green line is what we're looking at here. We could see price points around this. This orange line is kind of our average trend. This is the way that it's been trending. So if nothing really changes, we expect to see prices around this point. And if it dips down even further, we could potentially see prices around this red line here. Moving right along, our GDP growth, inflation, unemployment, and interest rates all have scores of -1. And we can take a look at our fundamental section right here. Pound GDP growth, negative 0.2% compared to New Zealand's 1.7%. Pound unemployment sits at 3.6% compared to New Zealand's 3.3%. Pound inflation, 10.1% compared to New Zealand's 7.2%. And lastly, pound interest rates are at 3% compared to New Zealand's 3.5%. So yes, all of these metrics are favoring the New Zealand dollar. Our historical data shows us that historically speaking, this pair continues to drop as the year goods or as the months go along towards the end of the year. We can see our trend reading as well as our daily price chart here, just showing us that this has been on a downward trend. And our COT data, our institutional traders are shorting both of these pairs at the moment, meaning that they are selling this pair at the moment. So really quickly, before we wrap up, I thought that it would be nice to check out the market heat map, because the market heat map has somewhat of a new look to it. If you're familiar with the old EdgeFinder videos, I would go through the market heat map and it would look like this. It would have all of the boxes. The boxes would take up the screen and that was about it. But the new market heat map has a much easier to read this bar chart here, showing our major currencies, so our US dollar pairs, and our major indices as well. And this is showing you how much the pair or indice has moved percentage-wise from yesterday to today. So GBP USD from yesterday has moved 1.43% towards the upside, which is our biggest major currency pair mover of the day so far, whereas USD JPY has gone down negative 0.54%. So this would be our strongest move to the downside from yesterday to today, major currency pair wise. We can see the same thing for indices. We can see the S&P 500 from yesterday to today has gone up 1.52%. And if you want to look at all of our assets, we can see these boxes here. This darker the blue is the stronger the move towards the upside, and the darker the red is the stronger the move to the downside. Relatively speaking, based on where it was yesterday, where it is today, and kind of how popular it is. So we can see, for example, we were just looking at GBP NZD, and this pair actually has gone up 0.85% from yesterday. So it has had a slight move to the upside from yesterday, but of course, all of our data that we pull in, all of those metrics are still very, very bearish on the pair as a whole, expecting it to continue to move to the downside, even though it has spiked up just a little bit from yesterday to today. Now we're going to check out some live stream highlights featuring Trader Nick and Trader Jake.
All right, let's talk about pound NZD. I took 2 trades on pound NZD in the last week, so I want to talk about it. Of course, it deleted everything, but that's okay. I'll pull it back up. So pound NZD is currently a -8 sell on the EdgeFinder, right? -8 sell on the EdgeFinder. So that's a very bearish reading. You can tell that we have all these categories reading -1, -1, -1. We even get a -2 here. So we have COT, retail, seasonality, trend reading, GDP, inflation, unemployment, and interest rate divergence. All of these besides retail sentiment is giving us a bearish reading, which is giving us a -8 sell. So when I saw this last week, when I saw that pound NZD, Euro NZD, and AUD NZD were all strong sells, what did that do? Did I just instantly go to the chart and start selling pound NZD? No, I didn't. But what it did was it put it on my radar, right? It put it on my radar and it made me start looking for opportunities to capture some of that weakness. So let's talk about the first trade that I took on pound NZD last week was I sold off these highs, right? We pushed up into this resistance here. I sold off these highs. I took it all the way down to these lows. That was the first trade. And then this week, right, I was still very bearish. So that was last week. Pound NZD was still a -8 reading, right? And then I'm thinking, you know what? We did get some bullishness there, but we broke, right? If we look at the high time frames, overall, this thing is very bearish. Could this just be the lower high right here? Could we have already put in that lower high? And then we started to push back down. And I was looking at the EdgeFinder and I was saying, you know what? Is this thing still showing a -8 sell reading? And it was. So this week I was like, you know what? Pound NZD is still going to be on my radar for sells. And what did we have happen? So this is where I combined the technicals, right, with what I saw on the EdgeFinder. So the EdgeFinder put it on my radar, and then that's when I start looking at the technicals to take the trade. So what did we get? We had a strong impulse move down right here, right? And then we get that correction right back up into this resistance. We can see that this was a strong level of support. This is actually the area where I was taking profits on my previous trade. We used it as support here, support here, support here, and then a bunch of times right here, right? Until we finally broke it. And then what do? After we get an impulse move that makes new lows, I take my Fibonacci from the swing highs to the swing lows. What did I see? I saw a 0.5 Fibonacci retrace back up into this level of resistance. So what I did at this level was I sold. I sold right into this level right here. I placed my stop loss back above like this little consolidation right here to give myself a nice margin for error. And I took this all the way down. I secured just under 100 pips. And then I trailed my stops, got stopped out on the trailing stop. I ended up with like a little over a 1% win on the day here on these shorts, right? Obviously, I would have liked for pound NZD to continue melting down because I had runners open. I would have made a lot more money if we continued down into these lows here. But, right, that's not what the market had in store. We actually had a double bottom situation happening here. We rallied off that level. Pound got very, very strong today. We did have some pound news. Right, we had some pound news. We had claimant count. So this is like pretty good jobs numbers for the pound. And what's interesting is, you know, the pound had an initial bearish reaction. So I believe that those jobs numbers came out like right here. We got an initial bullish reaction and then we melted down. We broke these lows. I secured some profits. I trailed my stop right back above like where that news made its highs. I trailed my stop right there. And then price literally just rallied here, made that double bottom, and started to move up. So, right, risk management, trade management is important. I wasn't going to let a win turn into a loss. Obviously, not as big of a win as it could have been. But that's how I managed my trades, and I was able to walk away with a win, even on a day where the pound is very bearish or very bullish. Why has NZD been strong? To be honest, I really don't know, Latif. It's a good question, and you know I do like to pay attention to a lot of the fundamentals, but you know, perfectly honest with you, I'm much more in tune with the fundamentals of what's happening on the dollar, you know, some stuff about what's happening on the pound, what's happening on the euro. But when it comes to the NZD fundamentals, I really don't have a strong answer for you. All I can say is that, you know, this is why I use the EdgeFinder. I'm not just saying that because I'm on the stream. I'm not just saying that like whatever. Like I won 2 trades in the last week because of the EdgeFinder, like straight up, because it put it on my radar. And right, like I said, the NZD is not something that I really have a fundamental knowledge of. Like I don't have a lot of fundamental knowledge of what's happening with the New Zealand dollar. But what I could see is that NZD CAD and NZD CHF were strong buys. Euro NZD, pound NZD, AUD NZD were all strong sells. What does that tell me? It tells me that the NZD is strong. So I want to get short on like pound versus the NZD or AUD versus the NZD, right? So it literally just put it on my radar and allowed me to at least see the opportunities that were in front of me, right? Now, let's say it was reading strong sell and I went to pound NZD and there was no technical confirmations, then I wouldn't have taken a trade. But when I have the confirmations with the EdgeFinder and I have the technicals, it makes me much more confident in my entry, right? And yes, I am affiliated with the EdgeFinder. So thank you to A1. They gave me a code Jake. If you use code Jake at checkout, you'll get that 40% off Black Friday sale.
You know, when looking at things like gold, we have a super neutral reading. So we'll still pull up gold just for the traders who look at it. So here's gold. Gold here today, big push to the upside. And you might ask, well, why are you not bullish on this? Well, the reason is, we'll go look. Pulling up gold. So on the gold side of things, we get a score of 0. And all that means is that basically we have all of these different factors. Their net sum is 0. So there's no strong bias one way or the other. So if we break this down really quick, COT data, again, institutional positions and short positions are long and short positions are relatively even. If this thing pokes up to 60% long, that would give us a bullish reading, because again, this is tracking what hedge funds are doing. If the COT data is showing that gold is heavily bought right now by institutional traders, that would be a bullish catalyst. But right now we get a 0 in this category because we don't have enough conviction one way, long or short yet. Retail sentiment, the crowd is short there on gold. And that makes sense, right? Because actually, I think this is the number. This is the number. This is bugged on oil, you guys. We're going to get that fixed. Oil is showing gold's number right now. And that's probably because when we made these pages, it might have just been copied and pasted over. So we just did some recent updates on these things. But yes, keep an eye on that. If you trade oil, or if you watch it, it'll probably be changed on the EdgeFinder within the next hour or so. On the short side, lots of short interest on the gold market. Very little long interest on the gold market here. So as this thing continues to shoot to the upside, the retail trading crowd is super short, right? They're trying to sell this thing as it rallies, which is very common, unfortunately. That's just what tends to happen. Is like, as something gets going, trends up, the retail traders short it. When something trends down, they're buying it. And so they always get caught in bad trades. So if I'm looking at the gold market, just from a technical analysis standpoint, I think you have room to go up to levels like this, right? So you have resistance up at 1800, right? That's a pretty round number play that I think we could see gold rally up to. 1800, retesting major resistance. I think you do have to be very careful if we make it up to there, because you might have some sellers who want to take that premium opportunity to sell it back down. But right now, you guys know I'm not a big fan of like jumping in front of trends. So when this thing is trending up, I'm not going to be shorting it. I'd like to see this thing, if I was to be short, something like this, right? Looking for selling on rallies within a trending downwards market. So right now, though, the EdgeFinder still has it as a plus 0, so no particular bias. This going down would give us like if the trend were to crack to the downside, it would give us more of a bearish reading, but not enough strong conviction there just yet.
Make sure you guys check out the links in the description if you need broker recommendations, access to our free Discord, or want to chat with us on Telegram. If you're interested in our trading software, the EdgeFinder, you can find that in the description as well. Thanks for watching.